Vishnu Gurudevo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishvadaram Gagana Sadrusham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogi Birdhyanagamyam Vande Vishnu Bhavabaharam Sarvaloke Kanatam Sarvaloke Kanatam Sarvaloke Kanatam Om. Good morning, namaste, honor to the divine within you, the divine within me, the realization that we are one. As always, we're focusing on the unity and divinity of all life. This is the fourth in our series, Contemplating the Ineffable. And today our focus is know thyself as the key to the great mystery of life and consciousness. Of course, the journey that we are involved in is a journey to self-realization. The sages tell us that self-realization is the purpose of life and the highest purpose of life. There are few things that we can take with us when we leave this form and leave this life. And our evolution is of one of them. It's a riches beyond all other that we can harvest. And perhaps if there is a life beyond this, will provide a foundation for the next. So our focus today is knowing thyself. And knowing thyself at every turn in the road is the key to esoteric wisdom. Certainly we turn to books, certainly we turn to teachers, certainly we turn to sages, but the direction they will always point you to is to know thyself. In the work we've been doing, we usually begin with an invocation of the goddess Saraswati, and Saraswati means essence of self, the personification of your essence, a goddess that embodies a creative intelligence and the mystery of this creative intelligence that's carried on the breath and the artistry, majesty, and splendor of that mysterious and wondrous, life-giving intelligence that's carried on the breath. The purpose of this work is knowledge, but not knowledge in the ordinary sense of the word, of accumulating facts or even an understanding of how something works, but knowledge in a more ultimate and more total sense, that the knowledge that we're seeking is not mere information, but realization, that aha, wow, yes, I got it. That in every moment we're seeing. And this seeing is the most fundamental part of you. That the act of seeing is a very active and creative and ultimately a divine act. In the work that we've been sharing, we've been looking at an image of a horned torus, and this symbolizes energy on a molecular level moving from the source into the field, with the understanding that energy is intelligence, that an energy field is a manifestation of energy, and that energy has as its essence the fact that it's a feedback loop, that everything that exists is a cybernetic mechanism, that it manifests a state of homeostasis, takes in its relationship to its environment and its own state of homeostasis, feeds that back to the core, to a cybernetic mechanism, and then self-creates the next moment in its manifestation. And the recursiveness of this process, of this feedback loop, of this cybernetic mechanism that is able to take in its experience of its environment and maintain its homeostasis, this by definition is consciousness. At the speed of life, the recursiveness of this process in consciousness defines consciousness, defines intelligence. And what we aver is, in the macrocosm, it is the same intelligence that is the cognizance in you, the awareness, the presence, what actually is experiencing this. While everything changes in your world, the one thing about you that doesn't change, and the one thing about you that's real, is this presence, this cognizance, this intelligence. And this intelligence is unborn and undying, everywhere, always, eternal, forever and ever. For this intelligence in you is the intelligence of life, the creative intelligence of life, the same intelligence that is in everyone and everything that lives. And this intelligence, which you experience as your cognizance, and this ability of, I see, is your divine intelligence. And every moment you are realizing this experience. So ultimately we're asking you to look into this mirror, to look into these eyes, to, in a sense, turn your eyes around and see who you are. Throughout this work, there's been a constant emphasis on the understanding that all life is sacred, and as profound, your life is sacred, that you personify an instant of the unfolding of the creative intelligence of the universe, that you personify the cosmos, and that everything about you is the signature of that instant of creation and personification of that moment of creation. And your destiny is the unfolding of the cosmos as you personify over your lifetime, so that if you're born when the planet Earth is facing Taurus, you have a Taurus rising, and you are the Toyota of humanity. If you're born 4 hours later when the planet is facing Cancer, you're very vulnerable and high maintenance and sensitive, and the opposite of the Taurian archetype. And so the whole spectrum of the zodiac, you embody the whole spectrum of the zodiac and the mix of qualities of these archetypal forces. So everything about you is significant and is grist for the evolutionary mill, and this presence experiencing the unfolding of its creative potential. Now, this morning, so what does this tell you about life and this great mystery of life and consciousness? What does your experience of being you tell you about this great mystery of life and consciousness? Well, for me, the first thing I realized is that the divine, that God, who we think of as vast and far away and infinite, that this God is very, very, very personal. this God is totally present in all of the vulnerability and quirks and all of the uniqueness and sensitivity and qualities and majesty and splendor and foibles and limitations of your character, that everything about you is in a personal relationship to the mystery, that the divine is personable to a degree that is almost unimaginable. Again, our concept of God is certainly this vast intelligence. It contains everything within it, but this intelligence operates on a molecular level. We're saying that every atom, every molecule, every cell, every organic process, every natural process is a fabric of intelligence, a fabric of creative intelligence, self-creating. This is this definitive characteristic of life. And there are two qualities of this self-creation. One is this amazing power that we have to create, that all energy is cognizance. All energy is this feedback loop, taking in its experience and using this to self-correct. The very definition of intelligence, the ability to learn and the ability to adapt to our environment. Again, to maintain our homeostasis as an atom, as a molecule, as a cell, as any organic process is doing. The second aspect of this dynamic, which is so fundamental, is freedom. That the creation is the self-sacrifice of the goddess, that we are born in freedom. This is why we have such a passionate attachment to freedom. But freedom allows us to self-create, to adapt to whatever impacts us in our environment. So it's fundamental to understand that the goddess, the world is the self-sacrifice of the goddess. The goddess is Shakti. The goddess is the creative potential of the mystery. One of the key aspects of this creative potential is this total self-sacrifice, that you and I have potentially unlimited power to become a Gandhi, to become a Bill Gates, if that is in our destiny, to become an Elon Musk, if you want to think of people who've transformed the world, to become a Steve Jobs, become a Helen Keller, that we have. That the goddess is, and if there's something wrong with the world, the problem is that we have been made too powerful, and that we have exploited this power, not necessarily for the good of humanity, but for selfish purposes. In any case, we're talking about the sacredness of all life. We're talking about the sacredness of your life and the significance of your life. But now I want to address what many would consider the most important question in life, the question of love. And this experience of love that we yearn for, and this experience of love that is so profound. One of the things that we've emphasized is human touch, and how deep human touch is. That human touch is ruled by Sattva Guna. And Sattva Guna is the energy of the source, that Sattva Guna is this feedback mechanism that we're describing. And that the surface of the body, where there's a balance in creation between yang and yin, a hard coconut supports soft, milky inside. That yang exterior supports that yin inside. That soft peach has a yang pit at its core. There's always this balance between yang and yin, uh, between positive and negative. This polarity is just fundamental. So our sensory apparatus emanates from the deepest core. So this soft sensory apparatus that grasps the world is sustained by its being a radiance of the deepest core, so that when you touch someone, that touch is relayed to the deepest core, because again, all energy is a feedback mechanism, taking in our experience to the core and taking in that experience with a profound living sensitivity. So we're saying that human touch is very deep, that human touch touches the very heart of your being, that there's something very profound for you to understand about touch, and how deeply we're touched by touch, how deeply we yearn for touch, how deeply nourishing and satisfying touch is. Then we get into the whole phantasmagoria of the senses, and how nourishing it is to be in our senses and experience our senses, and the hunger we have for variety. The sages point out that our genitals, our penis, our vagina, and our mouth are part of the same sensory tube, that as much as making love is water predominant, that love is what holds us together, what connects us, what binds us. Our lips and mouth are also water predominant, and our eating, our speaking at a meal, our eating are deeply nourishing. They bind us, they create us, they hold us together. So our seeking sensation, oral gratification, is just part of the same gratification that we may be seeking through our sexuality or other forms of nourishment, gratification. In any case, the sages tell us that what attracts us in another person, as we continue to talk about love, what attracts us in another person is their divinity. Sure, their body may be beautiful, but what really attracts us in someone else is this body as a vehicle for a being, for a spirit, just like every one of us is unique, a unique vehicle for a unique moment. What it is we see in someone else that's so attractive to us, that calls us, is their divinity. Think of the charisma of wild animals. And it is that charisma means the gift of grace. So what it is that attracts us in those wild animals, or those magical teenagers, or that magical toddler, is the gift of grace. Is that sattvic quality that is in nature, that is in children, that makes them so charismatic, and also in a beautiful woman or a handsome man. That charisma is God-given, is a gift of grace, that we somehow see the archetype or feel the archetype in the charisma of their character or personality. But the sages tell us that what we attract in anyone, what attracts us in anyone, is their gift, is that we recognize some aspect of the divine in them, and find this divine quality charismatic to some degree, and attractive to some degree. Certainly, one of the qualities of the goddess is magnetism, magnetic, just to both attract the qualities necessary to create and give birth, but also one of the qualities of the feminine is magnetism in the sense of fascination, that a beautiful creature is charismatic and fascinating and attractive, and you can't keep your eyes off of that beauty, that you're deeply attracted to that. Now, that's often points to a failing of human nature and the masculine, that we're such pawns to this aspect of the game of life. In any case, the next aspect of love that I want to talk to is what we mean by love. You know, the Eskimos have dozens or perhaps hundreds of words for snow. How many words do we have for love? And whether we're talking about love of God or love of pizza or love of a lifelong companion, we seem to be describing the same word. Well, maybe we have agape, maybe we have brotherly love, maybe we have snehem, universal love. But in any case, the fundamental word that's used to describe divinity is Ananda. And the most fundamental word that's used to describe the absolute Brahman, which is said to be beyond any, which is said to be the essence of ineffability, is Sat Chit Ananda, that it's being, and it can only be because we're conscious of it, and the experience of being conscious of our divinity, of the universal divine, is Ananda, is bliss. Sat being, Chit omnipresence, and Ananda bliss. And in my experience, I feel like what we describe as love is a bliss of witnessing another's divinity. And what we're seeking in all these forms of love is that bliss. Now, the sage Janine Parvati, really a radical thinker in her time in the 1970s when she was in the peak of her creative power, the sage Janine Parvati, in a book, Hygeia, and then in another of her books on natural birth control, talks not of personal love, but she talks about the romance cycle. And I like to spiritualize that by saying that we're pawns in the play of nature, in the play of life. What you would call, or I would call, falling in love, she talks about preconception. Again, we personify the mystery and the gifts of life. And one of the greatest gifts of life that life has to offer is the mystery of creation itself. And that when we fall in love, we are moving into a cycle that embodies and personifies the process of creation. The creation, look in your own experience, creation is an ecstatic and loving thing. Think of a mother's love for her child. Think of a father's love for his industry, for his craftsmanship, for his accumulated wealth and activity. We love our manifestation. We love the work that we've done. We love the things that we have created, the dance, the song, the fruit of our efforts. That creation is a profoundly, profoundly loving act. Our Mother, Father, God is, we personify a profoundly loving Mother, Father, God. And so when we fall in love, we are embodying the process of creation and aspects of the cycle of creation. So that what you call falling in love, Parvati calls the preconceptual stage, in which nature creates this this nest of love, this nest of relationship, this nest of caring, this nest of affection, uh, uh, and prepares a nest then for the moment of conception, ideally, in which this being is going to be born into this nest of love. Now, I'm speaking ideally. You know, many of us were conceived in the back seat of a Pontiac in a moment of lust, and so I'm romanticizing this to quite an extent. part of the trick of nature is, you know, when you see your boyfriend leaving you, or when you intuitively know your boyfriend's leaving you, you tend to ovulate and get pregnant while he has one foot out the door. That again, nature wants to get you pregnant, wants to recreate, regardless of this nest. So many of us were born once the sperm donor had left, simply because the womb rules. It's incredible, you know. Yes, we don't want to get into the underbelly of all this. So we're talking about the romance cycle here. And we're talking about a plot on the part of Mother Nature to continue her this fabric of life. But the most important thing I'm emphasizing here in this talk on knowing yourself is to understand that this falling in love is Mother Nature herself creating this womb of love. And this is the personification, the reenactment of the most profound and quintessential act of creation, that we are created in love, that we are created in Ananda, that we are created in bliss. I would also point out that the here and now, the presence, is the same bliss, that we're saying that the quality of the divine is Ananda, is bliss, is divine love, is this ecstasy. Ecstasy means to stand aside from this persona, from this mask, to experience your eternal being. Perhaps one of the things that is so ecstatic and blissful and exciting about our lovemaking is it happens in the moment. Think about how shallow it is, how hollow it is when you're off in your head and missed the eating of that cookie, so to speak, one way or the other. So I invite you to contemplate your participation in the romance cycle. Now, the other part of that romance cycle is once the child has been delivered, the libido, this love, goes towards the baby, goes towards the infant. And the father, who felt she was so in love with me, suddenly he's kicked off the tit of Mother Nature, and all that libido goes to the baby. So unless he's able to grow up and mature from a love receiver to a love giver and experience the divinity through giving, there's a crisis in that relationship where his own inner child, who finally found their mate, someone who's going to love them like their very own mother, finds that mother is really Mother Nature, and she has another agenda, which is to love that child. So the sperm donor has to mature from the focus of being the sperm donor to being a caregiver, and to experience love through giving as much as receiving. So we've been talking about knowing thyself, and talking about knowing thyself as a way of knowing the divine and as a way of knowing the processes and the dynamics which underlie creation. So anything I'm saying here is just suggestive of something that you can be analyzing, something that you can be doing in your own journey to self-realization. Because our basic premise is that you and everyone and everything is a gift. It's all a gift. It's all a present. And that everything about you is a gift. And every moment, again, I'm taken back to my understanding of Shiva. Shiva is the ancient Hindu god that personifies tamas guna and the experience of being embodied. Shiva is the experience of being embodied, rules tamas guna, inertia, and the processes that underlie the crystallization of consciousness into form. And Shiva means auspicious. Just how amazing it is to be in a body, just how amazing it is to be part of this gift of life. To see, to taste, to feel, to touch, to create, to love, to dance, to hurt, to lose, to find, to grow. So, my dear Shiva, everything you're seeing, everything you're tasting, everything you're smelling, every moment of consciousness has the ability to be a realization and to be in the presence and to be in the ecstasy, the auspiciousness of this gift of life. So I invite you to we're talking about knowledge as realization. I'm inviting you to live in a moment-to-moment realization of the poetry that you are, of the magic that you are, the miracle and mystery of everyone and everything you see. This life is awesome. Every flower, every bug, every germ of this creation has a depth which is infinite, 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 and divine. An expression of this majesty which is beyond comprehension. There's only one life here, and it's the same life we find in the curl of the DNA and the curl of the cosmos. And this infinite and divine life is the life in you. So I invite you to close your books and to just come right into this moment and the omnipresence of the life in you and the ecstasy that inheres in this moment. So Goddess bless, know thyself. That's about all I have to say. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Let us salute this sacred, sacred gift of life. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand. Say a prayer. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Hand in hand, side by side, with hearts open wide. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Help others find their way. Create heaven here today. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand. Sing a prayer. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. times like these we need to remember what is real. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. United in our quest to spread love and happiness. Stay strong and keep your faith alive.